Today we're going to talk about a game called Little Town Hero, which is actually made by the people who make Pokémon. Game Freak is most known for Pokémon, but this is one of those few exceptions where they made a game that isn't Pokémon. But Little Town Hero was not nearly as well received as most Pokémon games are. As a matter of fact, this game was kind of disliked. And I think the poor reception for Little Town Hero, much like many other games that are made by big publishers, is its comparison to Pokémon. So today we're going to talk about what I think is actually good about Little Town Hero in spite of it not being Pokémon like I think everybody wanted it to be. But before we get too far into that, my name is Dan and welcome to my YouTube channel. I like talking about video games that were poorly received and bringing up things that I thought were actually pretty good about them. And sometimes I'll spend a month talking about Pokemon, but regardless, if you're into any of that, do me a favor and subscribe. So anyway, Little Town Hero, let's talk about what it is. That's probably a good place to start. Little Town Hero stars a kid who has never seen anything outside of his little town. But that isn't by choice. His little town is actually being protected by a kingdom who claims that everything on the outside world is dangerous and you don't want to go there. There is one way to see the outside world, and that's through the castle, and that is just what your main character wants to do. He wants to get inside the castle and break out and see what's out there. Beyond the story, let's talk about what Little Town Hero is when it comes to gameplay. This is where things get a little complicated, and I think this also attributed to the game's poor reception. Little Town Hero is a card-based, turn-based strategy game. You really have to wrap your head around the way it works. It isn't as simple as using an attack or a spell or anything like that. It's a lot more complicated. Essentially, there are three types of cards: an attack card, a defense card, and a spell card, and they all have their own rules and they all have their own effects. You spend energy to activate a card, and then you use it against the enemy's card, and things happen. That is probably the simplest way I can describe it, but the thing I want to point out here is that instead of it being a turn-based RPG like Pokemon or other games, Little Town Hero is a card game. It's very strictly a card game, and it's not a game that you just pound through enemies and continue forward. The best way to think about a battle in Little Town Hero is that it's more of a board game than it is a turn-based fight in an RPG. After each turn, your character moves and the fight moves to a different part of the level. And depending on what space you land on, there's a different perk potentially waiting for you there that might help you or maybe even hurt you in battle. Now, why am I going through all this? Why am I detailing the combat system of Little Town Hero? The game can teach you way better than I can. It's something I didn't know about the game going in. I knew there was cards, I knew there was something to do with a card mechanic, but I didn't know the game was this deep and detailed. I'm guilty of this. Everybody's guilty of this. You think of Game Freak, you think of Pokemon, and you think, oh man, is this gonna be Game Freak's new version of Pokemon that everyone's been waiting for? No, this is Game Freak's take on a card-based RPG. And I think that stereotype's gonna be impossible to get around. We've seen this before with Agents of Mayhem, where you think that a game's gonna be like Saints Row, but it's not, it's Agents of Mayhem. And I think the same expectation was placed on Little Town Hero. But does this mean Little Town Hero is a bad game? I don't think so. I think that it's a game that tries something new. I think you just need to set your expectations that you're going to play a card-based RPG, which means that these battles are going to be long-winded and they're not as simple as smashing A and being done. At first I was a little annoyed. The tutorial takes forever. The story starts off pretty slow. There's a lot of talking in the beginning, but this is an RPG, so I guess I should have seen that coming. But once the game gets kicked off and you're finally fighting an actual boss fight with ramifications of winning and losing, things start to get interesting. The game even gives you a chance to say, hey, I want to play on easy mode because I don't want to play strategy games. It recognizes that it's a little more complicated than people might have expected. But during this boss fight, which by the way took 12 rounds, I started to feel a sense of gratification from figuring out strategies and things that work in battle. All of the tutorials that I was trudging through actually started to come together in this fight, and ultimately I wound up winning and feeling pretty good about it. So while the story might be a little cheeky and silly, the game was actually pretty cool, and now I know that when I'm in the mood to play a long-winded boss fight that almost feels like a board game, I can turn to Little Town Hero. So if you can set your expectations with Little Town Hero in that it's not Pokemon and that it is a strategy-heavy card-based RPG, I think you're gonna have more fun with it. And if you don't like card-based, turn-based strategy RPGs, then Little Town Hero might not be for you, and that's okay too. That being said, I'm not that big of a fan of card-based RPGs, and I'm enjoying Little Town Hero just the same. And if you've played Little Town Hero and you've got some thoughts, do me a favor and let me know those thoughts in the comments. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. This game is very divisive. People think that Pokemon Sword and Shield might have turned out better if Game Freak wasn't working on Little Town Hero. But anyway, if you like this video, do me a favor and like it. And if you really like this video, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. It's the #1 way to let me know that you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, and then I should keep doing it. And again, I think this game is just fine. You just have to go in and set your expectations and realize that it's not Pokemon. I'm gonna leave that right there, and I'll see you in the next video.